Joseph Stalin, born Iosif Vissarionis de Yugashvili, ruled the Soviet Union from the mid-1920s until his death in 1953, transforming it into an industrial superpower at the cost of millions of lives. His early life in poverty-stricken Georgia shaped a ruthless revolutionary. His political career involved cunning maneuvers to seize power. His wartime leadership turned the tide against Nazi Germany, and his post-war years saw renewed terror and isolationism. Stalin's era combined modernization, paranoia, and unprecedented repression, leaving a legacy of both Soviet survival and human catastrophe. Early life in Georgia. Stalin was born on December 18, 1878, Old Style December 6, in Gori, Georgia, then part of the Russian Empire, to Bessarion Jugashvili, a cobbler, and Ekaterine Galadze, a washerwoman and devout Orthodox Christian. His father, a former serf, descended into alcoholism and domestic violence after his shoemaking business failed, beating both his wife and son. Young Ioseb, nicknamed Soso, developed a tough, vengeful streak amid this harsh home. A childhood accident, perhaps a carriage run over, left him with a permanently withered left arm, and smallpox scarred his face. Ekaterine, determined to lift her son above poverty, enrolled him in Gori's church school, 1888-1894, where he excelled academically and learned Russian alongside Georgian. She then pushed him into the Tbilisi Theological Seminary in 1894, hoping he would become a priest, but Stalin was expelled in 1899 for non-appearance after revolutionary reading. Marx, Darwin, and radical pamphlets drew him to atheism and Marxism. In Tiflis, Stalin joined the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, RSDLP, in 1898 and aligned with Vladimir Lenin's Bolshevik faction after the party split in 1903. He organized workers, wrote pamphlets, and edited the Bolshevik newspaper Pravda, Truth, adopting the name Stalin, Man of Steel, around 1912. To fund the party, he orchestrated expropriations, bank robberies, and extortion rackets in the Caucasus, including the 1907 Tiflis bank heist that netted 250,000 rubles but killed dozens. Arrested multiple times and exiled to Siberia, Stalin escaped repeatedly, honing his skills as an underground operative. The 1917 October Revolution elevated Stalin, appointed People's Commissar for Nationalities in Lenin's first government. He helped manage the multi-ethnic Soviet state, advocating national self-determination in theory while centralizing control in practice. In 1922, Lenin appointed him General Secretary of the Communist Party's Central Committee, a seemingly administrative role that Stalin used to build patronage networks, appoint loyalists, and compile dossiers on rivals. Lenin's stroke in 1922 and death in 1924 sparked a power struggle. Stalin allied first with Lev Kamenev and Grigory Zinoviev against Leon Trotsky, then turned on them, promoting socialism in one country against Trotsky's permanent revolution and outmaneuvering rivals through bureaucratic control. By 1927, Trotsky was exiled, Kamenev and Zinoviev demoted, and Nikolai Bukharin sidelined after opposing forced collectivization. Stalin's consolidation was complete by 1929. He had transformed a party of revolutionaries into his personal instrument. Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin, the first two leaders of the Soviet Union, pursued economic policies shaped by Marxist ideology, but diverging sharply in methods, goals, and human costs. Lenin's new economic policy, NEP, introduced in 1921, was a pragmatic retreat from rigid socialism to stabilize the economy after the Russian Civil War. Stalin's 5-year plans, launched in 1928, represented an aggressive push toward rapid industrialization and collectivization, abandoning NEP in favor of total state control. While both aimed at building socialism, Lenin's approach emphasized flexibility and recovery, whereas Stalin's prioritized speed and coercion, often at catastrophic expense. Both policies responded to crises. Lenin inherited the devastation of World War I, the 1917 Revolution, and the Civil War, 1918-1921, which caused famine, industrial collapse, and peasant revolts like the Kronstadt Rebellion. War communism, grain, requisitioning, nationalization, and central planning failed, leading to economic chaos and social unrest. Stalin, succeeding Lenin in 1924, faced a recovering but agrarian economy. He sought to match Western industrialization to prepare for war and achieve socialism in one country, rejecting Trotsky's global revolution. Introduced at the 10th Party Congress in 1921, NEP was Lenin's strategic retreat. It replaced war communism with limited capitalism under state oversight. Peasants could sell surplus grain after a tax in kind. Small businesses and private trade, NEPmen, were allowed. Foreign investment was encouraged via concessions. Lenin called it state capitalism, the last stage before socialism, arguing it would motivate production while funding socialism through taxes on private enterprise. NEP succeeded economically. Agricultural output recovered to pre-war levels by 1926. Industry grew modestly. Consumer goods reappeared. Politically, it preserved Bolshevik power by easing tensions with peasants, but created class tensions. NEPmen profited while workers struggled, and ideological unease among hardliners like Stalin, who criticized it for fostering nationalistic and reactionary thinking. Lenin viewed it as temporary, defending it as necessary to repair the crumbling economy. Stalin ended NEP in 1928 with the first five-year plan, 1928-1932. Targeting heavy industry, steel, coal, machinery, to build socialism rapidly. Subsequent plans, 1933, 1937, 1938, 1942, continued this with quotas set by Gosplan, State Planning Committee. Success was measured by output, not welfare. Collectivization forced peasants into kolkhozy, collective farms, liquidating kulaks, prosperous peasants, through deportation and execution. Industrialization succeeded quantitatively. USSR became a steel and tractor power, but at immense cost. Famines like the Holodomor killed millions. Labor was coerced via gulags and Stakhanovite shock work. Stalin justified it as essential for defense and communism, contrasting Lenin's caution. Lenin's NEP was pragmatic and gradual, accepting temporary capitalism to build foundations. Stalin rejected this as deviationist, demanding immediate forced transformation to overtake the West. NEP incentivized peasants with market incentives. Stalin's collectivization destroyed private farming, causing collapse and famine. NEP allowed private light industry. Plans focused on heavy industry via state directives, ignoring consumer needs. Lenin used persuasion and taxes. Stalin employed terror, purges, and camps. NEP restored growth without mass death. Plans industrialized but killed 10-20 million via famine and repression. Both were state-directed toward socialism, nationalized commanding heights, key industries, and used ideology to justify control. Lenin's Goel-Ro electrification plan prefigured Stalin's planning. Stalin's plans reversed Lenin's NEP retreat, prioritizing coercion over compromise. While NEP stabilized, plans modernized brutally, enabling WB2 victory, but at totalitarian cost. Industrialization, collectivization, and terror. Stalin's rule from the late 1920s brought rapid, brutal transformation. The first five-year plan, 1928-1932, aimed to industrialize the agrarian USSR through massive state investment in heavy industry, steel, coal machinery, achieving growth but at enormous human cost, including urban overcrowding and famine. Collectivization merged peasant farms into state-controlled kolkhozy, targeting kulaks, better-off peasants, as class enemies. Resistance led to executions, deportations, and the Holodomor famine in Ukraine, 1932-1933, killing millions. The Great Purge, 1936-1938, or Great Terror, epitomized Stalin's paranoia. Triggered by Sergei Kirov's assassination, possibly on Stalin's orders, it engulfed the party, army, intelligentsia, and ordinary citizens. Show trials liquidated old Bolsheviks like Zinoviev, Kamenev, and Bukharin. Marshal Mikhail Tukhachevsky and most Red Army officers were executed, weakening Soviet defenses. The NKVD arrested 1.5 million, executing about 700,000. Gulags swelled with political prisoners. Stalin reversed course in 1938, blaming NKVD chief Nikolai Yezhov, whom is Bobby. Leadership during World War II. Hitler's invasion on June 22, 1941, Operation Barbarossa, caught Stalin unprepared despite warnings. Stunned, he retreated to his dacha before rallying. Renaming the fight the Great Patriotic War, he appealed to Russian nationalism over communism, appointing himself supreme commander. Initial disasters: Moscow threatened, Leningrad besieged, vast territories lost, gave way to victories at Moscow, 1941-42, Stalingrad, 1942-43, and Kursk, 1943, where the Red Army turned the tide, aided by Lend-Lease aid and mass mobilization. Stalin met Allied leaders at Tehran, 1943, and Yalta, 1945, securing Soviet spheres in Eastern Europe and promising to enter the Pacific War. The USSR suffered 27 million deaths but emerged victorious, occupying Eastern Europe and installing communist regimes. Stalin's leadership was ruthless: penal battalions, scorched earth, mass deportations, but effective in mobilizing a nation for survival. Post-war years and death. After 1945, Stalin rebuilt amid the Cold War. He purged returning POWs as traitors, consolidated the Eastern Bloc, and launched renewed industrialization while maintaining terror against cosmopolitans and Jews. The 1948-1953 doctor's plot accused Jewish physicians of plotting his murder, signaling another purge wave. A stroke in 1945 weakened him. Paranoia deepened. On March 1, 1953, he suffered a cerebral hemorrhage at his Kuncevo dacha after a party. Aides, fearing reprisal, delayed aid until March 5th, when he died. His body lay in Lenin's mausoleum until 1961. Stalin industrialized the USSR, won a world war, and built a superpower, but at the cost of 60 million lives through famine, purges, and camps. Revered in some quarters as a wartime hero, he remains a symbol of totalitarian evil elsewhere.